Hello everyone, are you ready to learn something new today? So, today's lesson is reported question. What is this and how do you use it? How can we use reported question? We are going to learn it today together. Here we have a person that is feeling ill, so he's saying that I'm feeling ill. Here we have a conversation between two people. Where is Tom? And the other one is answering. He said he was feeling ill. So we use reported questions when we want to report or to talk for something that took place in the past. So they had a conversation and now the boy is telling that he said he was feeling ill. So the boy is talking about Tom and he is reporting the sentence. So, as we said before that, we use it in grammar if we want to tell another person about something or an action that took place in the past. So, we had a conversation with a friend and now we are reporting that conversation, and that is called reported speech, but if it's a question, we have to say it's a reported question. Reported questions are one form of reported speech. As we can see in these two examples, we have to explain that. We have the direct question. The direct question. So, the direct question is, she said, "Are you cold?" So, she is asking if he or she is cold. She is asking directly, "Are you cold?" How can we report this question now? We have to replace the verb said with asked. Me, if I was cold. The second one, he said, "Where is my pen?" So this is a direct question. Where is my pen? And the reported question in this case is, he asked where his pen was. When we are hearing these examples, we have to explain something that is very important to remember. It's called backshift. What is backshift? Backshift is moving the tense of a verb one tense back. As you can see in this example, as I wrote them before, she said, "Are you cold?" So this is a direct question. How can we report this question? And which verb do we have to use? So we have to replace the verb said with the verb asked. "Are you cold?" was the direct question. Now we have to say, she asked me if I was cold. So this is the reported question. And as we said before that we have to backshift the tense, in the first one we had the tense in present simple, are. So are you cold? And now if we want to report this question, we have to say I was cold. So we have to move the verb one tense back. And this is called backshift. So it's important and don't forget. We have three groups of questions if we want to report the direct questions. The first group of questions is reported yes-no questions. We introduce reported yes-no questions with ask, so the verb asked, and if or whether. So she asked me if I was cold, and we backshift the tense of the verb. If we have the direct question, she said, "Do you like coffee?" The reported question, of course, has to be, she asked if I liked coffee. As you can see that the verb in this case is do you like, so it's present, and we have to backshift the tense of the verb, and in this case we have to use the past simple. And it's also important to mention that the word order changes, and in this case we have subject plus verb plus object. So she asked me if I was cold. So this is not a question anymore as it was in the first one. Now it's a statement. She asked me if I liked coffee. As we said before, that we replace the verb said with the verb asked. So we usually introduce reported questions with the verb asked. He asked me if or whether. We can use if or we can use whether with yes/no questions. And we also can use it with WH questions. That is the second group of questions. So this is the second group. The first one was yes/no questions. The second one is reported questions, so WH questions. As we know that WH questions are who, what, when, why, where. We introduce reported questions by adding ask plus the question word. If the direct question in this case is, he said, where do you live? So we have the question. He said, where do you live? The reported question in this case has to be, he asked me. So we replace the verb. We have the verb said. Now we have the verb asked. Where, we have the same question word, but it's not a question anymore. We have to say, he asked me where I lived. Let's see at the verb. The verb here is live. So it's in the present. Where do you live? How can we report this? As we said before, that we have to go back one tense. So if this is in the present, we have to report it in the past simple. He asked me where I lived. And the third group of verbs is choice questions. We use choice questions when we want to choose between two things. We introduce these reported choice questions with ask plus if or whether. This group of questions is the same with the first group that was yes/no questions. So we have one example. He asked, do you want tea or coffee? So we have the direct question here. And how can we report this question? If we want to tell to someone that he asked me, we can use me or we cannot use it. It's optional. He asked whether I wanted tea or coffee. Let's make a short revision about all this that we have learned today. So there are basically three types of questions. The first group was yes/no questions. As we can see the question, do you want tea? Do you want tea? The question is in present simple. So, how can we report this question? First of all, we have to use the verb asked. He or she. She asked if I wanted tea. So, we have the verb asked. We have the word if, or we can use whether. I wanted tea. So now the verb is in past simple and it's not a question anymore, but it's a statement. Let's continue with the second group. The second group was WH questions. As we can see the example, where did you drink tea? Now, how can we report this question? We can report this question by saying, she asked me or he asked me where I had drunk tea. So, because the verb is in past simple, we have to go one tense back and we have to use the past perfect. And the third group of questions was the choice questions. Do you prefer tea or coffee? In this case, if we want to report this question, we have to say, she asked me if I preferred tea or coffee. So, we have used past simple because the verb here is in the present. Now, the first part was an explanation about, so we were discussing about reported questions. And now, the second part, I'm going to introduce you a video and let's try to summarize all these things that we said. So reported speech, but in this case we were talking about reported questions. It's a short video and I hope it will help you to understand the reported questions better. So in reported speech we use ask with question. You can use ask with or without an object. As we can see that the girl is asking the boy, do you need any help? So this is a direct question. And now let's see the reported question in this case is, she asked me if I needed any help. So the direct speech or question in this case is, do you need any help? The reported speech or question should be, she asked me if I needed any help. So we have you and here we have me. You can use if or whether when you report a question. And the word order is a statement, as we said, that is subject, verb, object. So the direct speech in this case is, have you read the news? The reported question should be, he asked if I had read the news. So we backshift the tense. And it's a statement, it's not a question anymore. It's subject, auxiliary verb, and the object. Use the question word and a statement to report the WH question. So as we said, the WH question was the second group of questions. For example, let's see the example below. The direct speech, so the question was, what are you looking for? She's asking, what are you looking for? And the reported speech or question in this case is, she asked me what I was looking for. So it's a statement. Now we have two sentences that are going to help us to understand the reported questions better. Here we have the direct questions and we are going to form the reported questions from these. So, the direct question is, Carl is asking, are these your glasses? The verb is in present. He asked me if those were my glasses. If the verb here is are and is in present simple, here the verb should be were and is in the past simple. Carol, which skirt did you choose? She asked me which skirt I had chosen. Because here the verb is in past simple and in the reported question the verb is going to be in past perfect. So this was the short video and now we are going to do some exercises in order to practice the reported questions. Let's continue with the first sentence. So the last part of this lesson are exercises, of course. Now let's start with the first question. We have the direct question here and we are going to make it into reported question. But how are we going to do that? Now let's see it. Mandy is asking, are the boys reading the book? So we have to focus on the main verb. The verb is in the present continuous. Are the boys reading the book? How can we report it when we want to tell to someone that Mandy is asking, are the boys reading the book? And we have to say, yesterday Mandy asked me if the boys were reading the book. The second sentence, Jason, who gave you the laptop? So the verb here is in past simple and now if we want to report this question, we have to backshift the tense and we have to make it into past perfect. Yesterday, Jason wanted to know who had given me, in this case, because here we have you, who has given me the laptop. Sentence number 3. Robert, is Tim leaving on Friday? As we can see that the verb here is in present continuous and we have to make it into past continuous. So yesterday, Robert asked me if Tim was leaving on Friday. The next sentence is, or the question, Nancy is asking, why didn't Nick go to New York? So, as we can see that the verb is in past simple because it's didn't go. How can we report this question? It's easy. Yesterday, Nancy wanted to know if Nick hadn't gone to New York. So we have to backshift the tense. And the last sentence is, a man is asking, when does the train to Liverpool leave? As we can see that this question is in present simple. How can we report this question? We said that we have to go one tense back. Yesterday, a man asked me if the train to Liverpool, when the train to Liverpool left. So, before we finish this lesson, we would just want to summarize these things that we have learned today. So, the lesson was reported questions. As we know that reported questions are one part of reported speech, we use these when we want to report a conversation or something that happened in the past. And also we mentioned about 3 groups of questions: yes/no questions, WH questions, and choice questions. I hope you like this lesson, and I think that you are going to practice more. Thank you very much.